1929. The financial house of cards collapses, and the overinflated stock market plunges into a Great Depression. A financial panic grips the world. For the majority, it means the interminable line outside factory gates, desperately hoping for a job that rarely comes. It means hunger and the march of the unemployed in the nation's capital. With acute domestic problems, America would now isolate herself more than ever from the international scene. It started in America, but practically overnight an economic blizzard swept the world. In Japan, France, Britain, always the unemployed, the soup kitchens, the grinding poverty, and the despair.
Some of my thoughts of the Depression. Well, I can give you a real quick one. In 32, 33, we came out here for a year. We lived on a Cypress Street, just below Kenneth. And my father came out for a year to look for work. And that was also the year that FDR was elected. Well, I remember one thing that took place several times, and that was someone would knock at our back door during the daytime, and my mother would go, and it was one of the men sleeping up in the mountains. Oh, you call them hobos, I guess. She'd fix them a hot plate of food, which she'd eat in the backyard. And my dad swore that our house was marked on the curb because almost every day someone was begged for food. And these were men that were living in the hills. That's one little item. People looked upon teachers, cops, policemen, firemen as lucky people. They had a steady job. Insurance men used to come around once or twice a month and get 25 or 50 cents for the premium for insurance because people couldn't afford life insurance or they had cashed it in. And it was a very difficult time. As far as it affected me personally, well, I started in the first grade in 1931. So, I was 5 or 6 years old. So it didn't register that we didn't have a problem. As long as my mother gave me that 1 penny a day at lunchtime for candy, that was the biggest thing in the world to me. And it was in extreme conditions. And as I said, people renting out their houses, begging for food. You had another thing which you probably have never heard of called Hoovervilles. These were settlements on the outside of towns, which were shacks men put up to live in. They were called Hoovervilles, and they were sprinkled throughout the country. Well, you figure you have 25% of your people unemployed. That's going to affect you. But as far as direct relief, just what I've told you about my father. But as far as, and that's about all I can think of, is the brief period that he worked. He was out of work for nothing, did nothing for about 2 or 3 years. And he lived off the savings, and they refinanced their house and things like that. But it's a case of they rented out, as I told you, the second floor. And they did things, a lot of people did that. A lot of people took in boarders. You shared your telephone with your neighbor. It wasn't that unusual for someone to come to your door and say, "You got a phone call," because you couldn't afford a phone. It was a tough period.
It is 3 months, my friends, since I have talked with the people of this country about our national problems. But during this period, many things have happened. And I am glad to say that the major part of them have greatly helped the well-being of the average citizen. In the short space of these few months, I am convinced that at least 4 million have been given employment. Or saying it another way, 40% of those seeking work have found it. That does not mean, my friends, that I am satisfied or that you are satisfied that our work is ended. We have a long way to go, but we are on the way. We come to the relief, for a moment, of those who are in danger of losing their farms or their homes. I have publicly asked that the foreclosure on farms and chattels and homes be delayed until every mortgagor in the country has had full opportunity to take advantage of federal credit. And I make the further request that if there is any family in the United States about to lose its home or its farm, that family should telegraph at once, either to the Farm Credit Administration or the Home Loan Corporation in Washington, requesting their help.
FDR's New Deal was a rapid departure from the Hoover administration. The Hoover administration's focus, government, was to allow the market to basically manage itself. FDR's New Deal involved an activist government in which government played a large role in changing the marketplace. Government actually created jobs, created thousands of jobs in an effort to stimulate the economy and to help with the unemployment rate that was approaching 30%. Without government's intervention in creating jobs, the works projects, the economy would have remained stagnant for years and probably decades. In addition to the creation of numerous government-funded jobs, there was a series of laws that was passed by FDR to strengthen the banking system, the FDIC, insuring deposits up to $100,000, various regulations on the stock market, preventing people from borrowing tremendous amount of money to purchase stocks. Stocks had to be purchased with a certain minimum collateral. And there were various restrictions placed on betting that a stock would go down, or hedging your bets and buying stock to short the stock, which brought down the marketplace. These are just a few of the regulations and the changes that were made by FDR. But the main thing that the FDR government did, which is being discussed today as America goes through its recession, is the use of the government to stimulate the economy, create jobs, and to really be more than an umpire in the game, but to actually be a player in the game. And that was probably the biggest difference in the New Deal from the Hoover administration. Government was now a player in the game and not merely keeping score and overseeing. And it turned out that this activist approach to government was exactly what was needed to turn around an economy that was in very, very bad shape. Since the New Deal, countries like Japan in the 90s, when it went through its recession that lasted over a decade, had numerous public-funded, government-funded projects to bring it out of its slump. And China recently has dedicated over $700 billion to help stimulate its economy and to bring it out of a recession. And China is one of the few countries in the world that's been running a surplus. So we're seeing FDR-type policies that were successful in the 30s being used today globally as a way of turning around slow economies.
They used to tell me I was building a dream, and so I followed the mob. When there was earth to plow or guns to bear, I was was always there, right on the job. They used to tell me I was building a dream with peace and glory ahead. Why should I be standing in line, just waiting for bread? Once I built a railroad, I made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower up to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, gee, we look swell, full of that Yankee doodly-dum. 500,000 boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with the drum. Say, don't you remember, they called me Al. It was Al all the time. Why don't you remember, I'm your pal. Say, buddy, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, ah, gee, we look swell, full of that Yankee doodly-dum. 500,000 boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with a drum. Oh, say, don't you remember, they called me Al. It was Al all the time. Say, don't you remember, I'm your pal. Buddy, can you spare